Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so we've kind of seen how the scanner class works. For the most part, I mean, to some extent, we've seen how the scanner class works, right? But then if you call some method, if you call, let's say, the next int and next double, okay, numeric the numeric methods, let's say next int, next double, and you mix it with next line, there's a problem that you can face depending on the order you call them, right? Depending on the order you call them. So let me go ahead and try to reproduce that error, and then we'll talk about how to fix it. Okay, so we know that to use the scanner class, we have to import it, right? So I'm going to import java.util.scanner. I am importing the scanner class located in the java.util package in the Java API. All right, so with a scanner class, we know that we have to create a scanner object. So I'm going to create a scanner class type variable, a class type variable of type scanner. I'm going to call it keyboard because really our input is going to be from the keyboard, right? And then this variable is now going to hold a class, a scanner object. So over here, I'm now going to create the scanner object in memory, and I'm going to pass in the system.in, okay, the in method, the in object, which is basically going to take in input from the user, but it's going to be in byte info, and that's why, you know, if we accept byte info, we can't always use byte info. We need it in other forms. We need it as an integer or as a string. We need those different types of data in our program. And so we can't just work with byte data. And so we need a scanner object over here. You know, that's why we're creating a scanner object. We are creating a scanner object, connecting it with a system.in object. And then the methods in the scanner class are going to allow us to basically convert the info that the user typed, which is really in byte data. It's going to the methods in the scanner class are basically going to convert that byte data to other data types that we want. For example, int or doubles and so on and so forth. So that's what the scanner object is going to do. And we talked about this in a couple of videos back. All right, so let's kind of create a simple program to kind of simulate the problem I was talking about. So I'm going to display a message system.out.println, and I'm going to allow the user to type in their let's say their age, right? So I'm going to say, please type in your age, and I'm going to use the scanner object to call the method nextInt, right? Because an age is going to be an int, right? So next, I'm going to call the nextInt method, and really what this is going to do is it's going to pop up some kind of text box and allow the user to type in their age as an integer, but then we know that initially that information that the user is typing is going to be in byte data, but nextInt is going to take that byte data that the user types and convert it to an integer and return it. It's going to return it. It's going to say, okay, I took the user's data and I converted it to an integer and I'm returning it, so I need a place to store it. And if it's returning an integer and you need a place to store it, then you have to create a variable that can store an integer. And so I'm going to come up here and declare a variable of type int, call it user age, right? And then over here, once it's done converting the user's age as byte info to an integer or an int, I'm going to store the result in user age, because user age is an int variable and it can store the result. All right. The next thing I'm going to ask the user to do is to type in, you know, a decimal or any floating point value, like any number that has a decimal point in there. So I'm going to say, please type in, well, let's just remove this. Please type in a decimal. All right, I'm going to use the scanner object keyboard, and I'm going to call the next double method over here. And next has nothing in there. All right, so next double is going to also pop up some kind of a text box, and it's going to allow the user to type in something. Okay, and whatever the user is going to type is going to be converted as a double. And so once it's done, it's going to say, okay, I'm done. Here you are. It's going to kind of hand it to us. We need a place to store it. We need to take it and store it somewhere. And so I'm going to declare a variable. And if it's returning a double over here, then I need to create a double variable to store the result. So I'm going to define a variable of type double, and I'm going to call it user. It's giving us a decimal, so I'll call it user decimal. And then when it's handing it over to us, I'm going to store the result in user decimal. Okay, and then lastly, I'm going to ask the user to type in their name. Okay, so it's going to be the same idea. I'm going to use a system.out.print. I just copied over here and pasted. System.out.println, please type in your name. Okay, and so over here, I'm still going to use a scanner object and then call nextLine. Now, nextLine is going to also, it should pop up some kind of text box and allow the user to type in a value. And whatever the user is going to, whatever value the user is going to type is going to be returned as a string. And so if it's returning that value as a string, then we need a place to store it, right? If it's returning a string, then we need to create a variable that's going to, or that can hold a string. So I'm going to come up here and define a variable of a class type variable of type string, right? Remember, string is a class, and over here we're trying to create an object, basically a class type variable that is going to hold a string object. So string, I'm going to call it user string. And once it's done converting the user's name, user's input to a string, I'm going to store the result in user string over here. All right, so once we're done with all this, we're done. Let's just create a system.out.print statement, println statements that is going to just display our results to us and say something like the user age, or first of all, let's say the user named, right? We will have the value, the name in the user string. Actually, let's call this user name, not user string. Sorry, because it makes sense that way. User name. And because it says please enter your name, and then let's store the result over here in username. All right, so we will say the user named, we would have the name stored in username. So the username, let's concatenate it to the variable username. The user named username. My typing is bad, sorry. The username, let's continue our string, comma, aged. We'll have the age stored in the user age variable. So aged, let's concatenate the user age variable to it. Age user age, let's continue our string, is but let's say has a favorite decimal. Has a favorite decimal. Doesn't really make sense, but we're trying to explain, I'm just trying to explain that, right? So I'm just using an example. So has a favorite decimal. Now we will have the decimal in the user decimal variable. So has a favorite decimal. Let's concatenate that user decimal variable to it. As a favorite decimal, user decimal. All right. So this program looks fine. It looks fine, and it should work as coded, as typed. All right. So when I compile this, well, we have some errors. Let's first fix that. It cannot find symbol variable keyboard. All right. Okay. I spelled it wrongly over here. I declared the scanner object as keyboard, rightly B-O-A-R-D. Over here, I spelled it as keyboard with B-A-O-R-D. It's O-A. It's supposed to be O-A. So, O-A. All right. Compile this, and it's fine. So this program should work well, right? It should work as needed. Let's compile this and run it and see what happens. So first of all, it's asking us to type in our age. I'm going to type in my age of 27. Hit enter. Okay, so far so good. It's asking us to type in the decimal. I'm going to type in 56.8, right? I haven't hit enter yet, but when I hit enter, it should ask me to type in my name, right? And then after that, display to me this message saying the user named Kakra, aged 27, has a favorite decimal of 56.8, right? But I'm going to hit enter. Let's see what happens. It tells me to please type in your name, but it doesn't give me any text box to type in my name. It just skips straight to the result. And over here, you can see that it says the user named. See, it couldn't get my name in the first place, so it displayed a blank, over here. It got my age and my favorite decimal right, so it was able to display it. Aged 27 has a favorite decimal 56.8, but it didn't get my name, and it stopped over here for some strange reason. And it should work, right? When you look at this, there's nothing really wrong with it. Now that's because of the nextLine method, and there's a problem with it. All right, so let me try to explain it here. Anytime you write the program with the scanner this way, and there are text boxes popping up, right, allowing the user to type in values. When the user type in those keystrokes, those values are stored in an area of the memory called the keyboard buffer, right? The keyboard buffer. So I'm going to use a multi-line comment over here to kind of simulate what happens in the keyboard buffer. So we know multi-line comments, right? So, start with a / and an asterisk, right? And anything that follows that all the way before the closing tag, or you can call it the closing tag. Before the closing tag, which is an asterisk and a / anything that goes in between these two, opening and closing tags, you can call them that way, become a comment. Anything that goes outside of them becomes a regular code, right? Because we know this is outside of that, so that's regular code. Anything that goes in between, see, it's green. The color is coming from our IDE, so that's helping us know that this is a comment. If you're just doing this in a text editor, you wouldn't see it. All right, so I'm going to kind of simulate the keyboard buffer in this. All right, so let's kind of simulate what's really happening. All right, and I'll run this again, and then let's go through it step by step to see what happens. So this statement is run. Please type in your age, right? And then this also hit. It's allowing us to type in our age, right? And anytime when I type in my age of, let's say, 27, I haven't hit enter yet, so right, so nothing goes into the keyboard buffer. Remember, that's where the values are stored, in the area of a memory called the keyboard buffer. So when I hit enter, 27 is going to be stored in the keyboard buffer, but not only 27. Because I hit the enter key, a new line character is also going to be stored with the 27. Okay, when you hit the enter key, you are basically creating a new line. It's just like when you are in Microsoft Word and you hit enter, or even when you are here and you hit enter, right? You go to the next line. And so by doing that, you are storing not just 27, you're storing 27 and a new line character. So in the keyboard buffer, once I hit enter, what goes into the keyboard buffer, right, is the number 27, and on the next line, a new line character. So I'm going to denote it with the \n because we learned about this, the new line character, right? And then we'll be right here on the next line. Okay. All right, and then I'll display this line. Please type in a decimal. We'll be right here. All right, please type in a decimal, and then this will execute. So we have a text box allowing us to type in our decimal. So I'm going to type in, let's say, 56.9. That's my decimal. I haven't hit the enter key, so nothing goes into the keyboard buffer. But as soon as I hit the enter key, 56.9. Well, I think I skipped. Hold on, I skipped something here. I didn't talk about all the details on this line. All right, so let's go back quickly. All right, so please type in your age. Is going to be here. I type in 27. 27 is stored into the keyboard buffer with the new line character because I hit the enter key, right? Before we head over here, right, and I should have done this. Let's just do this really quickly. So I type in 27, hit enter. 27 is stored in the keyboard buffer, and then a new line character is also stored in the keyboard buffer. But next int, this method over here, okay, is supposed to, when it's called, it's supposed to go into the keyboard buffer and fetch, or basically get or extract the next integer it finds, or the next int it finds in the keyboard buffer, right? The next int, when it goes into the keyboard buffer, it goes into top bottom, right? From top to bottom, right? So it finds 27 as the next integer. If that's the next thing, it finds. It's basically saying go into the keyboard buffer and find me the next integer. And so it sees 27 as the next integer, and then it stores 27. Well, first of all, it gets it away from the keyboard buffer. So see, it's gone. I just cut it from there. Right, and then 27 is stored in user age. All right, and so the next thing that's supposed to display is please type in a decimal, and we can see it here. Please type in a decimal, right? So I kind of skipped over that. So now we're clear. And then we are on this line because this is allowing us to type in our favorite, or basically our decimal, right? So I'm going to type in 56. Let's say 9, and when I hit enter, right? We are right here. Okay, we are right here. I mean, in terms of the queue of things entering the keyboard buffer, right? So 27 was here, new line character was here, and then now we're right here. So the next thing I type is going to continue from here going. So when I hit enter over here, 56.9, and then another new line character is going to be stored into the keyboard buffer, because once, when I finish typing the 56.9 and hit enter, when I finish typing the 56.9, I also hit enter, and so a new line character is going to be created or entered into the keyboard buffer. So I'm going to hit enter over here, and something weird is happening over here. But before that, 56.9, when I hit enter, 56.9 and another new line character is going to be entered into a keyboard buffer, right? So next double over here, right, is also going to go into the keyboard buffer and find the next double. So it starts from the top, but if the first thing it finds is a new line character. Now, so this is important. This is one of the important things. So next int, next doubles, the numeric methods, right, the numeric ones, next int and next double, are designed to skip over. Okay, anytime they are called, they are designed to skip over any new line character they encounter. So over here, remember the first number in the keyboard buffer was 27. When we called next int, it was able to find 27. That was the first thing it encountered, so no issues there. Next double was called, but then the first thing it encountered was a new line character. Next double was supposed to go through the keyboard buffer and find the next double, but the first thing it encountered was the new line character. Now next int and next doubles are designed to skip over new line characters. And so this new line character is not a problem. Why? It's not going to remove it. It's going to skip over it and jump right here to the next line into the next thing in the keyboard buffer. And it happens to be the next double. So it's going to grab the next double. Oops, sorry. It's going to grab the next double. I'm going to cut it, right? And then, so basically all this line, let me undo it. All this line is going to go away. It's going to disappear. So I'm going to remove this line like that. And then once it fetches the next double, that next double is going to be stored in user decimal here, right? And then we will be right here. Okay, we will right here. Well, in terms of things entering the keyboard buffer, right, we'll continue from here, right? But after removing this 56.9, once I remove it, we'll be right here. Okay. So 56.9 will be stored here in user decimal. And so system.out.println, please type in your name. It's supposed to allow us to type in our name, but it didn't. It just jumped over, just skipped. Not necessarily skipped, right? It just terminated and then went straight to this line. Okay. Now that's because next lines are not designed to skip over new line characters. So let's see what happened. This message was displayed, right? And we can see it was displayed over here. But next line was supposed to go into the keyboard buffer and extract the next line. You can think of it as a next string over here. Next lines are not designed to skip over new line characters. And so next line found this new line character. Now, next double already skipped this, all right? So let's just undo this for a second here. Next double already skipped this. It's still in the keyboard buffer, but because it skipped, it was right here. It found the next double, took it away. So we are right here because this has already been skipped. We're right here. So when next line was called, this was the first thing it encountered, which happens to be a new line character. And next line is not designed to skip over new line characters. Anytime it sees a new line character, it terminates. It terminates and then just moves straight to the next line that follows. And so that's why over here it didn't even allow us to type in our name. It just terminated because the first thing it found was a new line character. We have to basically get rid of this new line character before it works. So basically that's it. Next ints and next doubles are designed to skip over new line characters, but the next lines are not designed to skip over new line characters. So there's a way to basically get rid of this, get rid of any new line character that is in front or is basically ahead of a new line of a next line method okay, before it encounters it. There's a way to clear it, and that's what we're going to learn. And so I know this is confusing, right? But that's really what's happening. That's a picture of what's happening, kind of, right? So it's important you kind of understand it. So the way we would fix it is this. So at this point, this has been skipped by the next double. So this is really what's preventing. This is really what's preventing the next line to really perform the way it's supposed to perform. Right? So we need to get rid of it. All right. So right before this line is executed, right, we want to consume this new line character, and we can do that with the same method, keyboard.nextLine. And let me just use a comment over here to say that this is a single line comment, starts with two double slashes, and anything that follows this two double slashes from the two double slashes all the way to the end of the line becomes a comment. So I'm going to say over here, consume the new line, or consume any new line character, or consume a new line character, right? Because really what this is doing is this. So what happened was this. Before okay, so this is what was ahead of the new line the next line method, right? This is what it was about to encounter. So before it encounters it, before it encounters it, we are calling next line over here, okay? So basically what really happens is this. Next this \n, right, is a new line. And a new on a new line, right? This is really a new line. It's basically an empty line, but I'm denoting it with the \n. When you really think about it, it is an empty line, like this. I'm denoting it with a \n. So when you call next line, you're telling it to go into the keyboard buffer and fetch the next line, right? Kind of like the next string. But really, when you think about it, on a new line, there are no characters on it. It's empty. It's empty, right? And so when you call next line is basically going to read every single character on that line. And we know on a new line, okay, a new line character creates an empty line, and on an empty line there are no characters. So it's going to kind of read, okay, it's going to read what's on the line, right? So by it terminating, I mean the first time next line sees a new line character, it terminates because it reads nothing on a line and then terminates. It reads nothing on, it doesn't even allow you to type anything. A \n denotes a new line character, and on a new line character, there's nothing on it. Calling next line is like telling the next line, or telling your program to go into the keyboard buffer and fetch the next line, or basically the next string. But a new line character is an empty line, and on an empty line there are no characters on there. So it kind of reads nothing. It reads nothing pretty much. But by calling this, we are consuming this. So it's reading something, but that something is nothing. Right? So it's reading something over here. If we were to store this in a variable, there'll be nothing stored in the variable. Although it will be a value, but it'll be an empty string. It will be null, or an empty string. Okay, so that is why we don't even need it. We don't even have to store it in a variable. So we are calling it over here. We're calling next line, right, to kind of read any character on this new line. And on an empty line, there's nothing on there. So it's reading nothing. And if it's reading nothing, then we don't even need it. We don't even need to store it in a variable. But this call over here, this next line call over here, will encounter this new line character, read nothing, and terminate. But when it terminates and it reads nothing, we have consumed this new line. So this new line is no longer there. We've read nothing on this line, right? So it's gone. And so the cursor will still be here. But by consuming that new line character, when we make a call to the next line again, because we've consumed that new line character, which, remember again, a new line character is basically an empty line with no characters on there. We've already read nothing on that line. We've already read it. So that first new line character that was here, okay, is gone. So when we call nextLine again, now it's going to not meet any new line character, okay, ahead of it. It's going to function properly. Okay, I know this is confusing, but try to picture it, based on how I've explained it. When I say that the nextLine method terminates when it encounters a new line character, what I mean is it sees it's trying to read the next line, the next string from the keyboard buffer, but it sees a new line character, which is really an empty line. There are no characters on there, so it will try to read an empty line, no characters. So it's going to read nothing pretty much, and that's why it terminates, because it's finished. It's done reading nothing on that line. So when it reads nothing, that new line character is gone. And so over here, we try to consume that new line character with this trick. The reason why this failed, okay, when this wasn't there, right? The reason why this failed was because it encountered a new line character, and it tried to read nothing and store it in username. So username contained nothing, and that's why we didn't see anything here. But before this encountered that new line character, we called keyboard.nextLine again, and this next line encountered that new line character. Okay, it tried to read, because that's what we are telling the program to do, to try to read that line, which really is an empty line. A new line character is just an empty line. So we tried to read the characters on that line. There are no characters on a new line, on a new empty line. But by reading it this way and not even using the value, not storing it in a variable, you've consumed that new line character. It's gone. You've cleared it away from there. So when you make a call to the nextLine method again, it wouldn't encounter any new line character. Okay, it wouldn't, because now it will allow the user to type in something. If it doesn't encounter any new line character, it will allow the user to type in something. Whatever the user types is going to be stored in the keyboard buffer, right? So compile this and run it again. Type in, let's say 47 over here, 56.8. Now, because it didn't encounter, because this has already cleared that new line character, but because this didn't encounter any new line character, it's functioning properly. So it's allowing us to type in our name. We are here, right? We're here in the keyboard buffer. What's going to happen is once I hit enter, Kakra is going to be stored in the keyboard buffer, right? The new line character, from my experience, I'm sorry. The next line. The next line method, in my experience, when you hit the enter key, I think it does create a new line character, but from my experience, I haven't seen it that way before. Okay, from my experience, when you call multiple next lines, they don't give you problems. They kind of don't leave an extra line, new line character in the keyboard buffer, But then when you call multiple next lines, they don't give you problems. So just to cut it short and to give you an idea, so just know that when you call multiple next lines, they wouldn't give you problems that way. It's only when you mix next lines with next ints and next doubles. All right. So because this didn't encounter any new line character, it allowed us to now type in our name, and Kakra will be stored in the keyboard buffer. And next line will basically go into the keyboard buffer because we're here, and then fetch the next line, which is Kakra, and then store it in username, and then move on. And like I said, from my experience, I don't think next lines leave a new line character, although they should, right? But then call them multiple next lines. If you had multiple next lines, they wouldn't give you any problems. So this is kind of an idea to give you a picture of what really happened. This is really the fix here. It's really a fix. The reason why that program is terminating at that point when you call the next line is because it's encountering a new line character, and the way to just clear it off is by making a call to the next line, which is really going to read what's on that line, right? A new line character it's an empty line, so it reads all the characters on that new line character, which is really nothing. You don't need it, so we don't store it in a variable. We don't use it for anything. But by doing this, you are clearing off that new line character, so that when you make a call to the next line again, it's not going to encounter a new line character. Okay, so that's just an idea of what it is. So when I hit enter now, it says the username Kakra age 47 has a favorite decimal 56.8. I know this is confusing. I know, I know, but just try to picture it from from where I was explaining it, and know that this is the fix. The reason why it's giving you that problem is because it's encountering a new line character, and so this keyboard.nextLine will clear off that new line character. It's basically going to clear the coast for you. So when the next line is called again, it doesn't meet that new line character, and it can work well. All right. And again, I know this is confusing, but hopefully it helped a little bit to try to give you an idea of it. If you have any questions, please comments down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next video. All right then. Bye-bye.